Hi, this is Sharon. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a granny square using one color of yarn. I'm using Vanna's Choice in the color Linen. It's a standard number 4 worsted weight yarn. I'm using a 5.5 millimeter hook, and you will need a stitch marker. So as usual, we're going to start with a slip knot. You don't need a long tail because you're going to weave that tail in as you go, and then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to make a loop out of this chain 3 by going into the first chain. So if you look at the chains, you don't count the one that's on the hook, so you have 1, 2, 3, counting those V's. We're going into that first one, bringing the working yarn in, ignoring the tail, and just joining with a slip stitch. And now we have a circle there in the center. I kind of try to put my finger through it to hold on to it, and then we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and that counts as our first double crochet. For a double crochet, you're going to yarn over, go into the center, pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops in your hook, go through 2, go through 2. Now we have 2 double crochets. Yarn over, go through the center, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, and that gives us our first cluster of 3 double crochets. Now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, yarn over. You can hold your tail along so that you crochet right over it. Go into the center, pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2. That's 2 double crochets, and here's our third. And now we have another cluster of 3, and we're going to chain 2. Yarn over, make our third cluster of 3 double crochets, and chain 2. So now we have 3, and you can pull this down to make room for your 4th cluster. 1, 2, 3, and now we need to chain 2, and we're going to join to the 3rd chain of our chain 3 from the beginning. So just go right in there, and with the slip stitch, join. So now we have our 4 clusters of 3 with chain 2 in between. And now, instead of continuing on, we want to actually turn our work. Now, you'll see that the yarn is showing on the back here, and that's fine, because what we're going to do is go through, pull that yarn through, and join with a slip stitch. And now the yarn is back on top. And we're going to start with a chain 3 as our first double crochet, and make 2 more double crochets. 1, 2. Now we're going to go over to the next corner, and we're going to do a cluster of 3, chain 2, and a second cluster of 3. The reason why we did not do that here is because this is our start, and we're going to finish joining that cluster, our next cluster of 3, chain 2, in the finish. So going here, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, whoops, let's go back and do that again. Here's our second. Here's our third. Chain 2. And again, if you need room, pull that down. Make another set of 3. So now we have our half of our corner here, a full corner here with a cluster of 3, 2 double crochets, and a cluster of 3. Now we're going over to the next corner, and we're going to repeat another cluster of 3 with 2 double crochets and a cluster of 3. And then chain 2. Pull your work down if you need more room. And another cluster of 3. Okay, so now we have our half of the corner here, full corner here, a full corner here, and now we're going over to our next corner, and we're repeating the same thing. Cluster of 3, chain 2, cluster of 3. And now we're back to the beginning, and we need to finish off this corner. So we're going to do a cluster of 3 and then chain 2 and connect to our chain 3 that we did in the beginning. Excuse my clock. And there's our 3. We're going to chain 2 and now connect to the third stitch that we had made and slip stitch to join. And now we have our 4 corners, and we have space in between that we're going to put a cluster of 3 into. But again, we're going to turn our work. The reason for turning is because if you keep this facing one direction, it will start to slant, and your granny squares won't be straight. They will have a curve to it. And also when you turn it, it helps to make it reversible, so there is no front or back. It's all the same. So again, we want to get that yarn out from there. So we're going to pull that through with the slip stitch. And now chain 3. Now we have a lot more going on. So we want to use a stitch marker to remind us that this is our beginning cluster. And it might seem obvious that, oh, when you get to where there's only 3 in the corner, but now you have your set of 3 in the center, and it can get a little bit confusing. So it's best to use the stitch marker just to give yourself a reminder that, oh yes, we're at the end and we need to join. So now we're going to make our 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and that's half of our corner there. Now we're going over to this center, and we're just doing a cluster of 3. It's not a corner, so we're not doing any chaining with it. We're just doing a cluster of 3. There's our 3. Now we're working into a corner, so we're going to do a cluster of 3, chain 2, and then another cluster of 3. So here's our third double crochet, chain 2, then our second cluster of 3, okay, and now we come again to that middle space that gets a cluster of 3. 1, 2, 3, and now back to the corner. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and another cluster of 3. 1, 2, 3, and now you've come to another middle that gets a cluster of 3, and then a corner that gets a cluster of 3, chain 2, cluster of 3, and then another cluster of 3 in this center, and then I'll meet you back here to join. So I finished my center, the other corner, my center, and now I'm ready to join into this last corner. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker and make my cluster of 3. 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, and join to the top of the slip stitch, the chain stitch with a slip stitch. And again, we're going to turn our work, slip stitch to join, and now we want to start with a chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and again I'm going to put my stitch marker so that I know that this is where I'm ending, and I'm going to make 2 double crochets to complete my cluster of 3, and now I'll have 2 center spaces that get a cluster of 3. So here's 1, 2, 3, and now the second. 1, 2, 3. So we have our 2 center clusters of 3, and now we're back to a corner, which gets a cluster of 3, chain 2, and then a cluster of 3. So there's our 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3, and now we have our 2 more clusters of 3, another corner, 2 clusters of 3, another corner, and then our 2 clusters of 3, and then I'll meet you back here to join. And now I'm back, and I just need to do my join in this last corner. So I'll remove my stitch marker and 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, join to the third, Try to get under both loops if you can. For some reason this one's being finicky. There we go. And slip stitch. And now again we want to turn. Put our needle through, or hook, sorry. We're crocheting, not knitting. Join with a slip stitch, chain 3. And again, I'm going to mark this so that I know when I get to my end. And then 2 more double crochets. Okay, and this time we have 3 sections where we're putting a cluster of 3 double crochets, and then our corner, and then 3, and then our corner, and then 3 in our corner, and then 3, and then the join. So you should be a pro at this by now, and I will meet you back at the end to join, and then we will look at our granny square all in one color. Okay, I've gone all the way around, and now I'm back to that first corner where I can join. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker and make my 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, connect to the top of that 3rd with a slip stitch, and now I'm going to chain 1, cut my yarn, pull through, and we have a finished granny square. All in one color. Everything is lined up straight. There's no wonkiness or crookedness about it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you are not already subscribed, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.